I should be one of the better players in the field and I should get through. And then I show up to sectionals and I'm surrounded by live guys. and I was hitting on the range this past year and I hit one wedge a little bit thin and I like looked around to see if anyone noticed that I had mishit the shot. Like, oh my God, they heard that and now they all think I suck. It's a very real like mental variable. And I do think that especially guys who are as hot and cold as Higo is, where you can tell like the confidence level is affecting his quality of play, the guys that he's surrounded with in the field, that's going to affect his confidence. So I don't think that that's just like a random variance thing. I think that that's an actual effect that will have some predictive value when it comes to Higo.
And even to take a look at his stats on the rabbit hole right now, it bears out. I'm pretty sure he's a better putter on Bermuda than he was out west. I mean, he's very bad on POA. By course length, short, very short, pretty good. And this is on the short to very short scale. And then you start looking by field strength. Very strong, sucks. Average sucks. Gains all of his strokes against weak fields and very weak fields. I'm going to guess that this is a very weak field. And then now, hey, where does he gain his most strokes? On very easy courses. If this continues to play like it did each of the past 2 years, would you qualify this as a very easy course?
Either very easy or easy. So regardless, it sets up pretty well for him.
At Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Cognizant Classic, DraftKings picks, some underdog, a lot of discussion going on today. If you're a good person, you will smash the like to the episode. If you're an even better person, you will sub to Mayo Media Network. And I do have a proposal for you guys. I'm actually going down to TGL next week. So 2 things. 1, I'm a part of a betting symposium for them to try to garner favor of the betting community of what should they be offering in TGL bets in the market that would encourage you to bet on TGL. If you got that, dump them down in the comment section because then I can present them directly to TGL if that's something that you're interested in. Number 2, I'm going to be in Jupiter, Florida. Jeff might be there as well. If you're in the area and want to play golf on Wednesday afternoon, Mayo Media Inc. at gmail.com because I'm going to be looking to get around in. I think that Jeff might be doing exactly the same thing as well. We can go have a time after we're done presenting all of this stuff to TGL. All that said, Alex Blickle from FTN in the Blick Discord, which you can get the link to down in the description right now, back on the line with me. We had some struggles coming up with a research project for you this week, but I think the biggest one that we can do starting off is how should you construct your DraftKings teams when 3 of the top 5 guys in the pricing WD?
Can you hear me okay, Pat? My heater just turned on. I can turn it off if you need.
Nah, you're good.
Okay. So this is a really cool question, and I think it allows me to talk about one of my favorite concepts when it comes to talking DFS strategy, and that is this idea that differentiation alone doesn't have any real inherent value. You have to be different and right. And so what I prefer to think about is the idea of looking for separation. And so if you have a lineup where you're just trying to get different and avoid dupes, for example, by leaving money on the table, if you're still just using all chalky players, or mostly chalky players, you're not getting any real separation potential. So you really need to think about it that way, first of all, where are you just getting different to be different? And in which case, look, in a large field tournament, when you are avoiding dupes, that is an important thing.
Hold on. Let me stop you for 1 second. I'm never really concerned about duplicated lineups in golf, honestly. You're rarely going to, it's more so that, do I want to be playing 2v2 with 30% of the field is more my concern.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and especially because we have 120 some players in this field. So dupes, they happen in MME, but I think that you can pretty easily avoid them by just going to contrarian players instead of just building really chalky lineups. So I don't think you need to leave money on the table to avoid dupes. And the larger point then is also recognize what you're asking of each player. Let's say you have a $6,800 player. So this week that could be you have Carl Phillips, for example, or Andrew Putnam. You're asking those guys typically to beat the guys in their price range. You're asking them to beat Dylan Wu and ADDC and Taylor Moore, that group of guys. If you all of a sudden leave $800, $1,000 on the table, now you're asking that 6,800 guy to beat everyone up through 7,800. You're asking, and notice you're asking every single player in your lineup to do that, to beat all the guys $1,000 ahead of them. So I am not just I'm not just in the camp of you don't need to do that. I'm in the camp of you really shouldn't be leaving that much money on the table. There are much, much, much better ways to make sure you're different in a way that, still gives you the chance to really separate.
How do you do that in a field like this, though? Because I think a lot of what you just went through is somewhat contextualized by the field at play without no one at the top of this board is actually all that good. Lowry's good, Gerard is good, the Højgaards are good, but it's not like this is an elevated event where there's Scottie and Rory and then, Xander Morikawa and someone else all WD, and all of the ownership concentrates on those two guys. The guys that all the ownership is going to concentrate inherently, because they're the only guys left this week, aren't the most reliable options in the world.
Yeah, which is, I think, an opportunity to take advantage of, because when there are guys, when ownership is concentrating this much on guys who, as you just put it, like they're kind of fragile chalk, to me, that's an opportunity to say, okay, well, that might mean that we get a really low 6 for 6 percentage this week. And I want to make sure that if we get that low 6 for 6 percentage, I'm not someone who's getting brought down by the chalk. Like maybe I'll only have 4 for 6 or something like that too, but I'm going to get burned by guys who are a little bit lower owned, such that if we get that low owned percentage, I have a chance to be 6 for 6 when the field is only, 3%, 6 for 6, something like that.
Okay, so let's try to talk this through a little bit, because I was under the impression, and this is because Kenny had put this out, and there's absolutely no reason to go into the $6,000 range this week. So, for example, you can start your lineup when we bring it up: Lowry, Nikolai Højgaard, Johnny Kiefer. Let's just say it feels like those three guys are going to be very popular plays this week. Hell, I've bet one of these guys. You've bet one of them, and I went with Lowry over Gerard because he's the highest remaining expensive player. People know his course history here. So let's just say these three guys. You still have $7,600 left in your lineup. You can go to Hao Tong and then Alex Smalley, and then I guess now you're down to $6,500. But his point was, could you just use two $6,000 guys? Because in this field in particular, I don't think there's that much of a difference between. Listen, I bet Zach Bauschu, so let's just say him at $6,600. Is there that big of a difference between him and what you were saying? If you leave $1,000 on the table and Mac Hughes, honestly.
There's not a huge difference, but you're going to be able to find a pretty key difference elsewhere. So, why don't we run through this? Why don't we build out a lineup that has?
Let's build the chalk lineup.
Okay. We can build the chalk lineup, and then we can also build another lineup that leaves $1,000 on the table, and we can run through every spot and say, okay, in this roster spot, I'm okay leaving the 1,000, but in this other roster spot, I'd be better off, using that money to upgrade. So I think what we'd see is, it's not that every single player in your lineup can't be upgraded, but you can find an upgrade somewhere such that you shouldn't be leaving that much.
So let's try to go through this. Do you think that Lowry, Højgaard, Johnny Kiefer, Nico Echeverria is going to be a pretty common starting point this week?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about Nico, but the first three for sure. I mean, I think Nikolai and Lowry, especially up top, and then I do think Kiefer will be very popular in the sevens, and he projects very well for us. And then below that, I'm not entirely sure. And I think the extension of this conversation is actually the fact that because you don't need to dip into the 6,000s much and even the low 7,000s much, it's there's a chance that all of those guys aren't popular. And so it's just another reason not to leave money on the table, because you're going to be able to find someone contrarian down there regardless that's already giving you the differentiation that you need in your lineup.
Well, maybe that's the key point here, is that you don't necessarily need to leave money on the table, but you can be a bit more aggressive with your stars and scrubs if you really want to. For example, that you could use Nico. I love David Ford this week. I bet on David Ford, and then it leaves you back in that Smalley range, or Zalatoris, or McGreevy, whoever it is. You could build a lineup like this. It leaves $200 on the table. Who cares? Lowry, Højgaard, Kiefer, Ford, Nico, and McGreevy. But you could also get far more aggressive if you really wanted to, lose McGreevy, lose Kiefer, and go down to, I don't know, Kevin Roy in one of those spots. And then all of a sudden you're back up to Rasmus Njergaard Peterson, and then you have 3 9s, 3 7s. You could even do more of an extension like this, get yourself up to Gerard if you really wanted to. I don't think it would be that difficult. You could go Gerard, and then you have $6,800, and you could use Andrew Putnam. I think of the $6,000 guys, Putnam's going to be pretty popular.
I think so too. I mean, Obviously, like he's
I bet
not,
him.
you know, the best player down here,
I bet
but
him.
I don't have an issue with it. I mean,
Thank you.
he's like very clearly one of the best iron players, one of the best around the green players, and he's even one of the better putters in this field. He just loses so much driving that he deserves to be in this price range in a field like this. But you don't usually find guys in this price range in a field like this who are very clearly above average players in at least three categories.
So let's say that this is the lineup that you can construct. You have the two highest now price players. Or is that all three of them? It's three of the top four highest priced players, and you don't really feel all that bad about the bottom of your lineup here. So do you think that people gravitate more towards this style of lineup or that first style of lineup where it's two of the high end guys, an 8, Johnny Kiefer, and then like 2 low to mid 7s?
I think it'll be this one here because I don't think that there's anyone in the 8K range that people are going to be like super excited to play. Whereas I do think people are very excited to play Thorbjornsen, the Højgaards, Gerard, and Lowry. So I expect that type of lineup to be pretty popular, but that doesn't mean that we can't go to it because again, like that means that people are still choosing only 3 players from the low 8Ks through the 6Ks. You can find at least 2 or 3 guys down there that can really help you separate and be unique.
So let's take this lineup and let's reconfigure it. If we think that this style of lineup is going to be popular, how do we now change that without leaving money on the table in order to not necessarily make it contrarian, but make it a lineup that, again, not worried about dupes, but worried about that I have 4 of the same guys as everyone else. How do I make that I have 3 or 2 of the same guys as everyone else, but now I have leverage with those 4 guys?
I think step 1 is getting a better sense of who's going to be popular at the top.
It's
and
everyone. Who's not going to be popular? Everyone's going to be popular at the top because you can fit 3 of these guys in.
Yeah, I mean, I think like relatively speaking, because I don't think they're all going to be 20%, right? I think the lowest might be 15%, but you're also going to see like there's a good chance Lowry gets to 30, for example, in single entries.
So let's try this. Let's just go through the 9K guys and try to figure out who is going to be the most popular of this group. So we'll start with Lowry. Do you think that Lowry will be the highest owned?
I do think so. The only way he won't be, I think, is if number 1, people just want to get different, or number 2, if for some reason people just consistently find the savings down to Gerard or Nikolai to be really useful.
So I would say that Nikolai is probably number 2, then Gerard. I mean, is the most obvious pivot of all time just use Rasmus and not Nikolai?
It's there. I like Nikolai so much more than Rasmus that I don't want to make that decision.
Me too. But
it will help you be a little bit more unique.
And it's funny enough, like I've bet Gerard. He's the only guy of this group that I've bet. He is my favorite. Although my numbers tell me Nikolai and then Lowry are the next 2, I'm actually prone to Keith Mitchell here. I think that Keith Mitchell is a great play, and I think that people will look at his number at $9,300. I could be way off on this. And they just don't want to spend that much money. They'd much rather take Michael Thorbjornsen. I don't know about Brooks, but Brooks for the price, and then Berger or Rye. And for reference, I went over this on the research show. It's not that Rye can't do well here. There's actually a great course for Rye's skill set. But if you're doing it because he played well last week, he had the weirdest Aaron Rye week of all time where his ball striking was awful and his putting was awesome. That never happens.
Last week, I feel like the randomness was at a 12 out of 10. Like it was insane, especially the putting variance. I'm 100% with you on the Keith versus Thorbjornsen read, where I kind of look at them as like extremely similar players. I mean, their expected strokes gain are right next to each other. Their course fit expected strokes gain are right next to each other in our projections over at FTN Fantasy. They are extremely similar players. They both make a ton of birdies. They both drive the ball super, super far. They're really, really similar plays, and I think that the field is going to pretty dramatically prefer Thorbjornsen. Hopefully, we don't talk them out of that, and hopefully the field doesn't see the same thing where they say, "I feel like these guys are so similar that I can just take the lower owned guy and be pretty confident about that pivot." But if they do end up projecting to be as differently owned as you and I are currently suspecting, then I think the pivot to Keith is a much better pivot than from Nikolai to Rasmus.
And again, this isn't anything against Michael Thorbjornsen. I think if both of us would say that if we're going to take one of these guys for the next 5 years to win the most tournaments, we'd probably say Michael Thorbjornsen. Hell, for the rest of the year, we'd probably say that. But at this point in time, I think you're right. I think these guys are far more similar than they are different. And Keith Mitchell's played this tournament 7 times in his career. He's won it once, obviously, but he's never lost strokes putting at this event, which is wild for Keith Mitchell.
Yeah, that's shocking, and I certainly wouldn't count on it to continue, but he's almost certainly going to gain strokes ball striking. It's the same story as Thor Bjornsson. Like, they're both going to hit it far. They're both a lot more accurate off the tee than people give them credit for. And they're also decent, at least in this field, decent approach players. They're nowhere near the upper echelon. They're not the Shane Lowrys or the Ryan Jards or even the Nikolai Hoygaards when it comes to their approach play, but they are going to gain on this field. So at least, over time. So yeah, I think they're really similar players. Their entire strokes gain profile, from strokes gain driving distance, strokes gain driving accuracy, all the way through strokes gain putting, are extremely similar. Like, they are remarkably similar players.
I would say that Thorbjornsen's irons have been better this year, but if you're looking at a longer term profile, Mitchell's are usually pretty good. They just haven't been quite up to par consistently like they normally are. So the rest of the nines, you got Rasmus Niergaard Peterson and Brooks Koepka. We'll throw Daniel Berger and Aaron Ryan into that mix too, just as a part of this collection of names, because they're probably on the similar tier as the other ones we're talking about. I have no read on Brooks of whether he's going to be popular or not. I'd say just pencil him in for 13% and you're probably good. Do you think more people will go to Berger or Rasmus Niergaard Peterson? Will it be Berger because of the history he has here and people are just unfamiliar with RNP? Or do you think it switches like, hey, this is the new guy. Why is RNP $9,100? He must be good.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. How did Berger end up playing last week? I think that's going to be a big key.
Horrible. His ball striking was fine, and he couldn't. His chipping is actually alarming. Now, I did a bit of a deeper dive in my column this week. You can always sub for free, get it sent to you down in the description of the Mayo Media newsletter. Highly encourage you to do that. But he's never, or the past 3 times he's been here, he's gained strokes around the green. Now, he used to be a really good around the green player. He is not anymore. In fact, he might be the worst guy on tour around the greens over the past. Actually, Neil Shipley is somehow so far this season. But Berger's like around the green play. It's like he has the yips based on just looking at the metrics of how good he used to be and how bad he is now. Like there's something just off when he stands over the ball, and it has to be mental.
Yeah, it's exhibit A of why I really don't like to look at course history at all, because historically he's been a very good fit for this course. You do need around the green play to a degree here. And now, players change, their profiles change, who they are as golfers and what they do well and what they struggle with changes over time. And so their course fit changes over time. And so it's another reason why course history just isn't super reliable. And yeah, I think he's really, really hard to trust right now. I don't think that the field is going to be on him, but he might get that course history bump where he's still 15%.
There is something too, especially looking back at the past 2 years, and you can find this up on the rabbit hole. Actually, if you take a look at the rabbit hole right now, check this out. This is a new feature that Ron debuted today. You can go down to approach scoring opportunities. It's a brand new metric that we have in, and you can just figure it out for people in the field. You can do it over the last 6 months, any sort of time, any sort of course, but it gives you particular buckets of how often they hit the ball inside 5 feet, 10 feet, and 15 feet, Blickle. How about that?
That's awesome. I love these splits. I love what Ron and you guys are doing over here at the rabbit hole.
So yeah, betspertsgolf.com/Mayo. Get yourself a discount. And there's more of this type of stuff coming. We're just trying to integrate all the shot level, shot length data that we have. Turns out, Alex, there's a lot of shots that are hit on the PGA Tour. It takes a lot of time to go back and process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually, I wanted to ask you, like, how much do you look at different approach buckets for course fit? Because this is definitely one of those courses where historically guys have hit fewer wedge shots than they average in a week here, and a lot more mid irons from that 150 to 200 range. So is that a big part of your process? Because I've kind of found conflicting data on whether it's predictive or not.
I think it really depends. I think it's probably not overly predictive, mainly because it's hard to gauge who's actually hitting from that bucket on a particular course, depending on what they do off the tee, how long they are off the tee. Like last year, I went back and watched Knapp's 59. He just bombed driver and hit wedges into every green.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a key point, is like guys who are different length are going to get different approach shot lengths. I also think that one of the issues with it is, when I've tested, like, okay, how good is this player going to be with his mid irons next year? It's not mid-iron skill in the past that best predicts that. It's just overall approach play. And so it's just like this thing that we've talked about a bunch lately, which is in golf, sample size is kind of king. And we we always need more sample size from these guys. And so it's one of those weird things where my intuition as a player really screams, oh, I should care about mid-irons here. But the more I look at the data, the less I'm convinced that that should be a part of my process, even though it currently is. And I just don't know if I need to dial that back at all.
I like having it in there. So this week when I built out my model, I put a split on driving distance and driving accuracy. I think driving accuracy does still mean something when there's water everywhere. If you hit it in the water, that's bad. But I weighted driving distance 3 times what I weighted driving accuracy, because if you're going to win, the assumption would be that you're driving the ball well and not hitting it into the water. So I need the guys that can take advantage of that, aka the Jake Knapp types. Not every player is going to go full Joe Highsmith and make every putt on the weekend. It's just, you can't prepare for that. That's going to happen time to time, but figuring out who that's going to be is nearly impossible. So try to come up with the more predictive stuff. And as we always talk about, what is more predictive than driving? Nothing, really, on tour. That is the most predictable round after round, shot over shot type skill that we can kind of project out. With iron play, I kind of did the same thing. I threw in that bucket that you talked about of the 150 to 200, but that was like 1/5 of what overall strokes gained approach was at the same time, because I do think that just approach in general is far more important than, not only is it a limited sample that you're going to have from that particular bucket, playing off different surfaces, playing in different wind conditions, whatever it might be. And if you start putting on a lot of these filters, then you're just looking at like 8 shots, which maybe you had a good day.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that's always a key point when you're using tools like that, is just make sure that you're not limiting your sample to, as you said, 8 shots, where you're still getting a large bucket.
But one thing I like about those scoring opportunity ranges is I like the differentiation between 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet. I feel like once you start looking back over 12 months and 18 months, you can get a really good sense of who actually hits it close from these ranges. And then you can compare that to their other stats. It's like, okay, so at an easier course, this guy that goes pin seeking and has like a really high percentage of hitting it inside 10 feet, where at like Riviera on firm greens, he's going to hit the green and bounce off to the back and he's going to be screwed. At a more receptive course, that's great.
Yeah, I love using data that way, where you're really kind of getting a picture of what their intent is when they're approaching the green and things of that nature. And I also just very much agree with what you said about like using this range as just a small piece of the model, but still keeping the larger approach play signal. I think that's probably the closest to what I do with it, which is I just run all my data, run all the models without using that split. And then once I have all the data, once I have the GPP scores over at FTN, then I try to say, okay, let me now find the guys who might get boosted because their mid-iron play is extremely good, and also let me avoid the guys whose mid-irons are really terrible.
Yeah, it's more of I like to have it in there as a decider between guys, if that makes sense. Like, oh, they're like, these guys rate out similarly, as you said, but this guy's been really good from this bucket that matters this week, and this guy's been really bad. That's good enough for me. It's like, that made my decision for me. It's not how I make my decision, the first thing I look at, but when it comes down to factors 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we get down to like number 5, and everyone's really similar, it's like, oh, this guy's good here, this guy's bad here, let me go with this guy.
Yeah, that's extremely well said. Agree with it all.
Look, I'll be straight with you. We talk all the time about getting better at work, sports, in life, whatever it might be. But most guys ignore the one thing that actually drives all of it: your head. Therapy isn't a weakness, it's a tool. I've seen it help guys deal with work stress, family stuff, breakups, addictions, whatever it might be. Just getting unstuck when everything feels heavy. The problem? It's usually a pain to get started. Long wait lists, huge costs, total hassle, you know the deal. That's why Rula is different. Rula makes therapy simple, affordable, and fast. They work with most major insurance plans, and sessions can cost as little as $15. You answer a few quick questions, they match you with a licensed vetted therapist that actually fits what you need, and you can be talking to someone as soon as the next day. No weeks of waiting, no guessing if you pick the right person. If you've been putting this off, stop! Go to rula.com/mayo and get started today. That's RULA.com/mayo. Once again, that's rula.com/mayo. Take the first step. Take control of your mental health. The new year's here, and if you're like me, you're gonna want to get your house back on track. Considering I've been through 8 weeks of renovations, my house still isn't back on track, but I do need some new stuff. That's where WAYFAIR came into play and was quite handy and had some awesome stuff. WAYFAIR is basically a one-stop shop for everything your home needs. We got new appliances, and now we need crap in the kitchen that matches that stuff. Or so I was told. Go on to WAYFAIR, get it. Stuff to put in the drawers to separate everything with our new cabinets, also on WAYFAIR. Complete game changer. It's been awesome. And I haven't had to go to the store. I've just been able to do it from home, which I find is a big win for me. Get organized, refreshed, and back on track for the new year for way less. So head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com, WAYFAIR. Every style, every home. Just this year in strokes gained approach, I've seen a lot, and he popped up for me as well, maybe as a first round leader. I don't think I'm going to get there as a bet, but $6,500 Austin Smotherman has been on fire with his approach play, which you really do want to have this week. Is he someone that we can work into this chalk lineup that we were just looking at and then see how that makes us a little bit different?
Yeah, he projects really, really well for us. I think he's a solid play. He fits exactly what we just talked about, solid mid-iron player. So yeah, let's see what he opens up. And then I'm curious, do you think that because his iron play has been this good that he's going to be really popular despite his extremely low price tag?
I do and I don't. And what I mean by that is that there's going to be a collection of people who will recognize. So he'll be over-indexed versus everyone else around him. But if he cracked 5%, I would be stunned. Because you just don't need to go that low.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was going to say, where I think that he will be the clearly most popular option in his price range, but that he will still be 5% at maybe 10% at most in single entries. So I think he's a very solid play, especially if he opens up some really interesting stuff for you elsewhere.
So I took Kevin Roy down to Smotherman. Now we have $600 to play with in this lineup. We still have, am I crazy for liking David Ford as much as I do, just as a player in general? Why does Thorbjornsen get all the hype and Jackson Koiven get all the hype? And this guy gets no hype whatsoever, despite being essentially on exactly the same tier as those guys.
Is he?
Is he? Well, his stats say he's very good.
The way that I put it is I think that Ford is similar to those guys in the sense that you can see the talent and you can see the reason why he might end up being really good, particularly the ball striking, very good off the tee. His approach play has been awesome so far this year. But Thorbjornsen is polished enough already with his short game and with his putting where he can have spike weeks and he can rely on those skill sets from time to time when his ball striking isn't there. I don't think Ford is PGA Tour ready yet with those aspects of his game where, again, the talent is there, the potential is there. Maybe in 2 years he's that guy, but I think his ceiling over the next couple of years is sort of what Thorbjornsen already is, if that makes sense.
I see him more just the way that he profiles, and maybe he ends up being a completely different type of player, but his numbers look weirdly like Morikawa's. Morikawa first showed up, and then Morikawa instantly won.
That's an interesting comp.
Because he's really good off the tee, but he's not the longest player. He hits an ungodly amount of fairways, and week over week his iron play is awesome. He can't really chip, he can't really putt. But I'm less concerned about around the green here for two reasons. One, if you're going to win this tournament or be competitive, you're just going to hit 85% of your greens in regulation. You're just not going to miss a lot of greens. I think putting here can be a bit fickle. The other thing, too, around the greens, this is one of the easier around the green courses on tour, too.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations where, especially if it plays easier again this year, and I don't know. I haven't been able to find whether they have it overseeded as well this year as they did the past few years, because it's not just about the decision to actually overseed, but it's okay, did that overseed actually take and is that now the dominant grass type this season? I don't know the answer to that. If it is, then it's going to be super easy around the greens again, and you can also have those rounds where you're just hitting so many greens that you just never really need to lean on your short game at all. I will say though, when Morikawa showed up, his around the green play might have been better his first year on tour than it is right now.
But he wasn't really relying on it because he was hitting so many greens in regulation. Now I'm talking about when he showed up to Hamilton for the Canadian Open, or when he went and he won the Barracuda, like those type of tournaments, easier courses, until he started getting into the mix a little bit more. But you could see right away, like, this guy's awesome with his irons. And that's how I feel about David Ford. Like, being good with your irons is the best thing you can do in golf to be a great PGA Tour player. Now, being a fantastic driver alleviates some of that pressure, as we've seen with why did it take Morikawa so long to come back and win? Well, it was chipping, it was putting, and he just doesn't have the prodigious distance as a lot of guys to make things easier on himself. But you can see that that's why he won right away. And I think that if you're going to hit it, you need to be like elite at something. Like people like Thorbjornsen, he's elite off the tee. I look at Ford, and I feel like he's elite with his iron game already.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And the other like really great aspect of being as good as he is with his irons is he makes more birdies than expected, right? Because when he's dialed in with those irons, he's going to give himself a lot of opportunities. And as we just talked about, when you're giving yourself opportunity after opportunity, you're also not putting yourself in a position where you need to chip to get up and down to save par. So he's going to make his fair share of birdies for sure. And that makes him really enticing from a DraftKings perspective.
So just taking a look here, who's number one from 150 to 175? Carson Young, Patrick Fishburne, and David Ford are your top three, with Jordan Smith and Eric Cole. One of the other things, I mean, this might not be the best way to do it, but I do like to go see who is good in these buckets when I'm thinking about a course, and then seeing if the names that are up there are guys that have played well at this tournament before. Because that's, I mean, it's confirmation bias, but it might be like a good confirmation bias.
I wouldn't even call it confirmation bias. I think that's a really smart way to approach it, because that is, you're phrasing that in a way where you're testing the predictive value of the skill set. It's not about what they did at the tournament. In the tournament, it's not how good were their mid-iron games in the tournament. It's okay, these are the guys who do this specific skill set very well. Is that translating to success at the golf course? That's the way you want to look at it. So I really like that approach.
So when you look at the guys in this 151 to 175 bucket in terms of scoring opportunities inside 5 feet, here are some names that are inside the top 20. Mac Hughes, Eric Cole, double runners up here. Austin Eckroat, Ryan Gerard, Chris Kirk, Tom Kim, Shane Lowry, Hao Tong Lee.
Yeah, a lot of those names stand out to me as well. I've got Lowry at the very top of our mid-iron approach play estimate. Zalatoris is there. Rye is there. Niergaard Peterson, Nikolai.
Davis Thompson is there for me too.
Yeah. Rico Hoey is another interesting name in this list for us.
What do we do with Rico Hoey? Like such big things were expected of Rico Hoey this year. And not only is he's just let everyone down.
And he's going to consistently project well in projection models, because basically every single projection model rightfully is saying guys who are as bad at putting as Rico Hoey is can't possibly continue to be this bad at putting, because putting is that unpredictable. But Rico keeps just trying to say, no, guys, I really can be this bad for a sustained period of time with my putting. And that makes him tough to trust. I think there's a good chance I'm going to play him this week, though.
I can see it. Well, his price point's back down to a spot where you're like, all right, $7,600. That makes a ton of sense. I do want to go back to this lineup because I do want to make those changes. We keep getting off topic with different guys here. So we put in Smotherman at $6,500. So Lowry, Højgaard, Gerard, Smotherman, Ford, Putnam. We have $600 here. How else do we make this different? Do we keep Putnam and move up David Ford? Do we move down? Do we get rid of, let's say, Nikolai Højgaard and Putnam, and we meet in the middle with two guys? What do you think the best course of action is here?
So the very first thing that I would do is I would check, okay, what can Ford become and what can Putnam become? And then the second thing, so let's see, 77.
Wrighton, Hoey, Valimaki. Valimaki, who was almost first-round leader here a year ago. Mac Hughes, Power would be the one would be the Ford swap. The Putnam swap would be to $7,400, which would be Nico, who I do really like this week, and I have bet on. Gim, Higo, Tom Kim, Kevin Yu, Eric Cole, that level of player.
Yeah, I don't have any strong opinions about guys in this range. I think Brendan and Brown instead of Putnam makes some sense, or Rico Hoey would probably be my top choice in that first one, which I think can very easily be translated into, okay, neither of those give us a much better player than what we originally had.
So if we lose Putnam, who do you want to lose? Lowry, Højgaard, or Gerard?
That's the exact next point I was going to make is what happens if we take either Lowry or Gerard down to Mitchell, who we both liked. Now does that spot become something that's like a really valuable upgrade?
So Lowry to Mitchell gives us $8,000, which gives us Mac Meisner, who we both secretly kind of like this week, but for no good reason.
He just projects well. Like I don't think it's a secret. He projects better than I think I expected, maybe better than you expected, but sometimes you just got to trust the projections. And I was surprised to see how well he projected. So I looked into the projection and thought, okay, yeah, this is sound. So I have no issue with him. I also think Johnny Kiefer at 78 is a really solid play this week. And so now we found a good pivot. Like this to me is a very meaningful upgrade, whereas previously it wasn't. And I don't think going from Lowry to Mitchell is that strong of a downgrade. So this is one of those examples where, there wasn't an immediate reason why we shouldn't be leaving $600 on the table, but 2v2 later, I think we very clearly just upgraded the lineup.
Is it worth downgrading Mitchell to, let's say, Rasmus Niergaard Peterson to get up to a Hautong or McGreevy from the spot where Meisner or Kiefer would be? Like, is that a meaningful upgrade from one guy to another? Like, is this because Hautong? I like Hautong a lot this week. I don't think I'm alone in that, and I think McGreevy's going to rate out pretty well. I mean, I like Davis Thompson. There's a way that we can get to these guys, but what is the point where we go past Keith Mitchell to one of these other guys, be it Thorbjornsen, Rasmus Niergaard Peterson, Rye Berger, where you're like, well, now it doesn't feel as good.
Yeah, I think to answer your first question, I do think getting to Hautong would be preferable for me. I really like Hautong as well this week. I'm hoping he's not going to be super, super popular. I think the easiest way to do that would just be to swap Ford to Putnam. We already kind of like both of those guys.
I like Ford way more.
Okay, then in that case,
we could go Mitchell to Thorbjornsen and put Hautong in.
Yes, let's do that.
Now, is this now still too chalky, as we were talking about off the hop? Or because we've constructed a lineup this way, now it's going to be a little bit different? Like, is Smotherman too popular for this particular lineup? Because obviously he opens all of this up. He might be.
I think you're probably good here just because Ford, I don't expect to get much ownership at all. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but and because importantly, you have a ton of conviction on Ford. So you believe that he can give you the separation that you need in a lineup. Whereas I personally, like if I had, just a $7,100 guy, it doesn't even have to be Ford. Just because he's low owned doesn't mean he's a separator. The fact that you have conviction on him is why I think that you can consider him a separator. But I do think it probably makes more sense to use Smotherman in a lineup that deviates at least once up top, where you're not just using like the chalkiest combination possible up top. And maybe we're not because
we don't have Lowry.
Have Lowry.
Yeah, we don't have Lowry, which should be probably good enough. Now, did you see my theory on Florida golf with bucket hats? Whereas 2 years ago, Peter Malnati wins in Florida, bucket hat. This tournament last year, Joe Highsmith, bucket hat. Does that mean Damon, Gim, or Marty Doe win this week?
I don't think so, but hey, maybe there's something there. Maybe the Florida sun is just so intense that extra protection from it really does make a difference for these guys.
Next week, Stephen Fisk. Watch out for Stephen Fisk in whatever tournament is next week. Not Bay Hill, the other one.
There you go.
He almost won it last year. He just could not. That's when I became enamored with Stephen Fisk. He's like, oh, he's like Luke List. He can't make a 2-foot putt. Then he won.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how similar the strokes game profiles are for Mitchell and Thorbjornsen. There was a time there where Stephen Fisk and Luke List, like you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them if all you were doing was looking at their strokes game profiles.
Well, there was a while with List, and I think this is what people forget, is that his around the green game was top 5 on tour. So his overall tee to green was so much stronger than any typical player that did what, because there's a lot of guys that are great off the tee, great with irons, and legitimately can't. Look at Rico Hoey. Like Rico Hoey is that guy right now. It just, he also can't chip. The moment that List, for his 18-month run, I mean, he came with the 8th at a major, he won at Torrey Pines, like he was good for a while.
He really was. In fact, like I think this is just a really kind of fun conversation where we tend to overlook how important around the green play is. I've got another comp for you. Rico Hoey is Kitayama without a short game.
Oh, that's interesting. Kitayama, I guess the difference between Hoey and Kitayama is Kitayama does putt sometimes. Well, okay, maybe he doesn't putt sometimes. He doesn't lose tournaments on the green as often. Like, Hoey's in a whole category by himself with how bad he is on the green sometimes.
You're 100% right there, but the I think the point being, it's like it's a whole skill set, and it's a really important part of the game, and it's especially overlooked as a scoring skill where everyone kind of thinks about around the green play as, okay, the thing you need to do to save par when you've made a mistake coming to the green, but it's also a lot of the time what you need to do to get up and down on a par 5 for birdie, or to get up and down on a drivable par 4 for birdie. And that makes it again like just a super super important skill set, including when you're playing really well. Now there are courses where it means less when you're playing well, and I do think this is one of those, because as you mentioned, it's not just that you might have a round where you don't need it very often, but also around the green plays easier here than most places, especially with the overseed. So but yeah, it's just a fun conversation to have, to look at these different comps and say, man, these guys are really similar if you just gave him this one skill that this other player has.
The research project that I wanted you to do, and you actually were the one who brought it up, is our good friends at Underdog, the sponsor of this show. If you have not used code Mayo to sign up at Underdog, do that right now. Get yourself a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Participate in the Pat Mayo Classic Draft that's going on for Cognizant right now. You can put in 5 teams. It's $20 to play. It's rake free. You'd be crazy not to do it, honestly. I don't know why you're not doing it. And if you play a $5 pick and play, you instantly get $75 in bonus funds in your account. But the big news from Underdog this week, Alex, is they changed their payout structure, and it's nice.
It's really impactful. I mean, I think like a lot of people are going to look at it, and so we should probably mention what the change was. And so they changed the 2-pick payouts from 3x to 3.5x, and the 3-pick payouts from 6 to 6.5x. Now, on the surface, you might think, does that really make that big of a difference? The answer is yes. Like these are really impactful differences, especially the 2-pick play going from 3 to 3.5, because the implied probability of the 2-pick plays used to be 58%. You need to be right 58% of the time on your individual picks to be profitable on those 2-pick plays. That's down to 53.5. They're both 53.5 now, the 2-pick and the 3-pick. That's the equivalent of minus 115 on a sports book instead of minus 122 and like minus 134, minus 131. I can't remember what the 2-pick used to be. Those are huge, huge differences. And it really has changed the optimal strategy. And so, I used to be exclusively 3-pick or 6-pick flex. And now I'm mixing in a lot of 2-pick plays as well.
I like this. This is where I want to be. Unfortunately, I like the golf product, but I think you need to pick your spots. I don't like just running out stuff all of the time. And frankly, picking players based on bad play, I find is far more profitable than picking them based on good play. But you get it attracts so much correlation in these lineups. They're like, oh, it's going to play easy today. Let me go lower on all these scores. It really dings you for that versus the other sports.
It really, really does. I think I definitely agree that the PGA product is not my favorite at Underdog, and I think they do some of the other sports extremely well. And the main reason is like in some of the other sports, Underdog gives more prop options than like anybody else. They're so good about that, and they're very clearly a little bit scared of getting beat pretty handily in the PGA streets. Now, there were some really encouraging signs this past week. Like we finally got specific hole scores, like you could do over under on hole 16 through 18 strokes. So I had some interest in those early on in the week, and they definitely didn't offer as many of those as they have in the past, but those are the kinds of things where I think you can find a huge advantage. Like you were talking with Jeff a lot about the hole 10 scoring advantage that we found over the weekend, particularly when the pin location was in its easiest spot. Like that sort of thing is, I think, where the advantage really, really lies. And we just haven't had many opportunities to take advantage of that this year on Underdog, but maybe it's coming, especially now that, NFL's long now in the rearview mirror. And I think we're at the part of the season where a lot of people are just sick of the NBA and how often the guys that they take end up not playing that night and things of that nature. So hopefully PGA picks up some steam as we go on and into the spring.
Well, for Pick'em, again, I like to pick my spots of when I go in. I'll throw in an entry just to have some fun with it. But if I'm really going to invest heavily, like I did on that whole 10 thing, when we found that proper market, it's like, I'm going to smash this. And hopefully the numbers play themselves out how they're supposed to. And it did. It was fantastic. And the weird thing about that Saturday round is I didn't count up how many. It felt like there was at least 8 missed putts inside 5 feet on that hole for birdie.
My God, the number of missed short putts this past week, and they were all my guys. Every single
Fitz.
one
No,
of my
it was
guys.
basically just Fitz. He was so bad on the weekend. But
I've
honest
never
to God,
seen-
I think this is going to give us like pretty decent numbers on him for the next month. Like his ball striking is better right now than it's ever been in his career. He's a major winner.
he was 2 strokes back early on Saturday and was very clearly the guy playing the best golf. Like there was no doubt about it. He was consistently hitting on some of the more difficult holes. Like I think it was 6, 7, 8, and 9. He had 10 feet for birdie and missed them all. Then messed up on 10 and 11, so he didn't make birdie on either of those holes. And then had really good birdie looks again on 12, 13, and 14, and missed them all, and then just forgot how to play golf. And suddenly the 10-foot missed birdies were 5-foot missed par putts, and was immediately out of the tournament. I was like, what the hell just happened over these last 10 holes? I've never seen somebody lose that many strokes putting in that like that little amount of holes, where he didn't have a 3-putt, he didn't have a 4-putt, he didn't miss a 2-foot putt. He just missed makeable putt after makeable putt. I was losing my mind watching that.
Well, that was sort of the Rory thing. I don't think that Rory putted all that poorly. I know that I even put out that he missed 9 putts over the final 27 holes between 5 and 12 feet. He didn't make any of them either, though. You just make 2 of them. Like, I don't expect you to make them all or half them. Like, percentage-wise, you're not going to make half them. Make 30% of them and you're fine. It's just, and he wasn't missing by, because you could see it with some guys, and this was the problem with Fitz. Like, he would just get the ball started on the wrong line, and he wasn't even sniffing the hole. It happened a little bit to Bridgman, towards the end of the round. He just kept leaving it, like, immediately low, and like it never had a chance to go in. It felt like every single one of Rory's putts from every distance had a chance to go in on Sunday, and none of them did.
Yeah, I mean, especially on greens that difficult and that bumpy, like the number one thing you can control is your speed, and Rory's speed control was really good. So I felt like he actually deserved to make more putts. That's also kind of an interesting tangent here. What did you think of Riviera this past week? Because I might have some controversial opinions on it.
I liked it, but the main reason I liked it was because I'm just envisioning what the U.S. Open is going to look like there. It's like this course is going to be, they can make this course so hard.
As long as it's
it will be it will have to be, unless there's some sort of hurricane that happens on the West Coast in the middle of July, that course is gonna be firm.
Yeah. So that was my biggest takeaway was when I think about like the best courses on tour, Riviera and Bay Hill are absolutely 2 of the first courses that come to my mind. I don't know if I'd rank them 1, 2. I'd have to think about it more, but
people hate Bay Hill though. It's weird. I like Bay Hill too, and just people are like, "Nah, bad course."
I love it. I've played it. I thought it was phenomenal from the moment I stepped on the course. It has like this really kind of just great combination of extremely unique holes that you don't see elsewhere, like number 6, and just really, really strong, well-designed holes like 8, I think is phenomenal. But returning to Riviera for a second, one of the things I noticed about like my preference for those 2 courses is they're 2 of the courses that most consistently have really firm greens. And I think that if Riviera year after year had soft greens like what we just saw, I don't think I'd consider it as one of the best courses on tour. And that I think is the controversial part.
So you think that it played too easy this time around?
Yes. I would have liked for them to say, okay, you know what? Our greens are obviously going to be very receptive this week. We need to up the difficulty elsewhere. Let's make this rough really penal. The rough was way too easy for how receptive the greens were. But the second part of that is I don't think people realize how bumpy the greens actually were. Like we got some looks, but if you notice, like the broadcast actually tried to show fewer and fewer of those like really zoomed in low angles of putts, because the few that we saw, it was like the ball was tracking towards the middle and it would wobble to the right edge and then it would wobble back to the left edge and then it would wobble out on the other side. It's like, there's no way if he hit that putt 10 times, it would have done the exact same thing 10 times. It was just pure randomness. And I don't think people realize that it was that bumpy because of how soft the greens were. Like usually when greens are that fast, they're also really firm, and the firmness of the greens allows them to hold up throughout the round to all of the foot traffic. But every single time someone stepped, they were making spike marks. And I don't mean the type of spike marks that you can just go and fix. I mean like indentations in the green where you can go tap down an indentation all you want. The indentation is still there. And those indentations are what were causing all those bumps. So, they talked about how it's Poe a lot. the fact that those greens were absolutely contributed to why they were as bumpy as they were. But I think it was more just they were so soft that you were putting through an absolute minefield of these little bumps that were just all spike marks. And so really, really difficult. And it's yet another reason why, like, I think having firm greens is probably the most important thing now in terms of the quality of the golf course and the way it's going to challenge these players.
What would Fitzpatrick have to open at next week at Bay Hill for you not to bet him instantly? I was trying to think about this. Would it be like 22-1? Like if he's 30-1, I'm betting it.
I think the number's 40 for me. If he's 40 or above, I'll bet him.
We can get it there. Trust me.
Well, we can almost certainly get it there in our new favorite each way market.
It is. Hey, listen, a lot of people bet Rory last week in that market. They're like, hey, this is great. I didn't lose all my money.
Yeah, it was awesome. Shout out to you, by the way. Yet another second place finish.
5 and 6 weeks. And the week that I didn't have it, I had third.
That's hopefully you can trade one of those for a win and give yourself a couple missed cut weeks where every single one of your picks misses the cut, and then the next week you get the actual win.
For my purposes of what benefits me the most, obviously winning every week would be fantastic. That would be optimal, probably not realistic. If I have a quota of, let's say at this point, if I'm hitting like 4 winners a year, just let me hit the Masters. If I can hit the Masters winner, everything is good the rest of the year.
100% true. And yeah, and the other thing is, like, you're also giving yourself endless entertainment every single weekend just from having somebody with that good of a chance to win. So you've been on a roll with your outright picks, and hopefully you actually get paid off as much as you deserve for it soon.
It's funny to take a look because I do the Golf Digest article as well, where I don't bet top 10s at all, but I'm forced to make a top 10 pick. I'm up like 31 units or something stupid in the top 10 market. I haven't made any of these bets.
and as soon as you start making them,
they'll lose. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's really bad. But I just thought that was funny that I'm doing so well in this one market that I never play that they demand to pick from. It's like, yeah, sure. It's like when I went on a huge run last year in head-to-heads. I think I hit like 12 in a row or something in the column. And then I was like, I should probably just start betting these every week. I don't think I won another one the rest of the year.
It's amazing how often that happens.
So we went over the course. We should go back to lineup. So you do for just to put a bow on the underdog topic, that the 2-pick play now is actually quite profitable. It's not a stay away. You can make those plays now.
Yeah, they're really, really good now. And you were mentioning earlier how you get penalized for correlation in PGA a lot. The penalty's smaller in 2-pick plays than it is in 3-pick plays because you're not counting on as much correlation as when you go, over on birdies for all 3 guys or something like that. So you're going to get penalized a little bit less, but also it's easier to find some instances where you're not actually inversely correlating your picks, but Underdog is going to interpret it as if you are. So for example, like, let's say you think the morning is going to play significantly easier than the afternoon. You can bet on a guy to do well in the morning and bet against the guy in the afternoon. And Underdog will treat that as, you're betting on one guy doing well, the other guy doing poorly. That's inverse correlation. But you're actually saying, no, it's just about the weather. So there are going to be more opportunities like that as well. So I'm really excited about this change. I think it's great everywhere. Like, I've been doing really well this season in NBA. And it makes it easier for me in NBA because now I only have to find 2 picks that I like in a day instead of 3. But I think it's going to be even more impactful in PGA because of the way that you can kind of game the payout structure, since they're trying very, very hard, as they should, I think, to protect from the correlated slips. But that level of correlation very rarely actually exists in a round. Like it's as if they're guarding against the 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts, just making their lines terrible every single day. And most of the time, that's not the case. Most of the time, you're just betting on who's going to play well versus who's not going to. And so if they're allowing you to actually, game the payouts in your favor, there are also opportunities there. And it's going to be a lot easier to do that on the 2-pick plays.
One thing to look forward to at Bay Hill, this market has been offered sometimes in the pick'em game, is birdie or better on hole 16. Under. Always under.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And the other one I really like is you can get some anytime that they have a score on a specific hole or a specific like 3-hole stretch. Weather is so great to look at, because a lot of the time what you'll notice is like, I think the best example I can ever give from this was at the Scottish Open last year. If you remember, I think it was the Saturday, the wind was like 20 miles per hour all day, but it totally shifted. It did a complete 180 from the morning to the afternoon. And so one of like the 15th hole or something like that is where they were offering it. It was like the hardest hole in the morning, and it was one of the easiest holes in the afternoon because of the wind shift. And Underdog had no idea that that was coming. And obviously, like, all you have to do is look at a weather forecast. And so that was one of my most profitable Underdog days of all time. And it was literally just because the wind shifted. And so anytime they offer those like really kind of niche markets, that's where, as you said with number 10, like that's where you can find every now and then really strong edges to take advantage of.
Well, now, because they're the sponsor of the show, Code Mayo, by the way, they're probably watching this. They're like, oh, we're not going to offer up those markets. Stay away.
Well, maybe they should just offer them and pay a little bit more attention. And then because what's going to happen is that, oh, true. But like, if they paid just a little bit more attention, we'd still try and beat them, and we'd get, all the satisfaction and the fun and the enjoyment of playing it. But then they're also protecting themselves, and then they're moving the goalposts. And okay, that edge is gone today, but what's the next edge we can find? And that's like the most enjoyable part of this for me. So I think it'd be a really strong business model for them to offer as much as they possibly can, while remaining a really competitive market where they're not just hanging stuff that we're going to destroy.
Did you happen to see this DraftKings Cashout controversy, which happened?
Yes, I did.
So someone messaged me with it. So essentially what happened was, because of the WDs, the market reset at the Cognizant. So the one that I saw, that someone had like $5 on Justin Hicks to win. I didn't even know Justin Hicks was in this tournament, but that's what it was. And for whatever reason, the cash out for the $5 bet ended up being like 10 grand or something really bizarre like that. So the guy hit the cash out on the 10 grand and then was like, oh, should I withdraw my money? I don't know if anyone got their money out of this. And I get the impulse to want to do that, but like, you are flagged immediately. I guess if you get away with it, but even then, like, do they have recourse to come after you if that's the case? Because clearly it was an error, a system error.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to this question. This is a question for Pizzola, I think. But yeah. I don't know the inner workings of sports books. I will say, if you had the chance to do it, it's probably worth doing for that sum of money. Because if you can't play one sports book, so be it. Like, you still got plenty of others. I can't play DraftKings Sportsbook as is, so I wouldn't have had this opportunity anyway. But I don't I can't imagine that they're able to keep that money. But I also think, like, man, DraftKings, that's a really bad mistake to make, because what they did was, instead of taking the market down, they just said everyone at like minus
10,000.
Yeah, to win. It's like, okay, so no one's gonna bet on those guys right now, but yeah, it's just a really bad mistake on their part.
Yeah, it's a really bad glitch. And I'm pretty sure that what they ended up doing was, if you try to withdraw over a certain amount, they just block the cash out, like your withdrawal, and be like, oh no, we need to resettle this. This was an error. And I bet you in the terms of services, it would say that it's an error. I'm guessing if it didn't, then the money probably should be theirs.
I think so too. Yeah, I'd be shocked if it wasn't in the terms of service. And my guess is that if anyone left the money in their account, that it's already no longer in their account and it's been fixed. But I don't know what would have happened if someone did withdraw and were able to successfully do so.
Let's go back to some of the plays. We've gone over a variation of the chalk lineup of how to do this. So like for GPPs, we can figure that out. If we're thinking about single entry, 3 max, or hell, even 20 max, and trying to build up a pool of players or how to start our lineup, what do you think that should look like this week? And we went over that like 3-9, 3-7, maybe even a lower 6 type build that we thought was going to be pretty popular. Is there any advantage to be like, hey, let's just start our lineups with Keith Mitchell? Because as I mentioned before, the chalk above him is pretty fragile to begin with. And if you do it this way, you don't even have to go below $8,100 if you don't want to. Haotong can be you could build a lineup: Keith Mitchell, Haotong, McGreevy, Davis Thompson, Rasmus Niergaard Peterson. No, you can't. You can't even do that. So, but you can you can now go to 67 and put Putnam in here. You can go like a 5-1 like this if you really wanted to.
Yeah, you definitely could. I think
Play in this lineup. Oh, I can't even use Putnam. Damn it!
No, he's 68. I mean, you could go down from Nearguard Peterson.
Oh yeah, let's just do that. Let's go to Burger.
There you go.
Now I'm back at 7,000. Easy game.
Yeah. So for me, I think what I'm going to do at the top isn't making that decision first. I'm going to find the guys that I want to play elsewhere. So who are my favorites in the 7,000 range? Who are my favorites in the 8K range? If ownership wasn't a part of it, I think I might start like Kiefer and Haotong and then go from there. But obviously, ownership is a big part of it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. But I think it's going to be easier to find guys that you have a lot of conviction on and don't like the guys around them down lower. So in that 7K range, maybe even someone in the 6K range, like maybe it ends up being Smotherman. Then it will be up top to find guys that you have conviction on where you don't like anyone around them. Because if my lineup lands on Nikolai, I'm going to be fine with it. If I land on Lowry or Gerard, like any of these guys up top, I'm going to be happy to play them in my lineup. And so I think it's going to be more important for me to build up the rest and say, okay, now which of the guys up top make the most sense for my lineup? Do I want that differentiation where I go to Keith Mitchell, or can I just play the guy that I think is the highest projected player on the slate and the most likely to win and finish top 10 in Nikolai Højgaard? So I think I'm going to actually leave the top of the board as like my last decision this week for DraftKings.
So I kind of went into this. I bet Gerard this week at coolbet.com. If you hit the description right now, it'll bring you to the PME page. You can get Gerard boosted up to 21-1, which sounds awful, but I think he's 14-1 or 15-1 everywhere. That I was like, can you give me above 20 on this to encourage people to like, hey, this isn't so bad if you have to go bet it based on all of the withdrawals that have happened. So I like Gerard better than I like Lowry this week. Like Gerard was my focus coming into the week. Him and Kiefer were the two guys that I liked the most. But just to build the lineup that I put on right now, to go back to Gerard and Mitchell as my start, Haotong, Kiefer, Ford, and then Chris Kirk is sitting right there. Kirk has been awesome this year outside of driving, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I mean his game is so hard to understand. He's one of those guys where like when he's playing well, especially with like the tempo of his swing, it just looks like he can never hit a bad shot. And then he gets into these modes where he can't hit a good shot, and it's I have such a hard time understanding Kirk, and I haven't done well in the past of predicting when he's going to play well and when he's not going to.
So let's go by range here. So we did the 9s already earlier in the show. Of the 8K guys, who do you like amongst the 8K guys?
Haotong's definitely my favorite.
Okay, so Haotong's your favorite. I like Davis Thompson as well. As Jeff would point out, he's a generational flusher. I don't even know if that's true or not, but he really struggles with the old flat stick. But I think for this course in particular, he's pretty good. But I'm with you. I bet both of them, but I like Haotong more than I like Thompson. And I cannot get over how much the projections like Seabez, and I just hate Seabez.
Yeah, we kind of had this conversation before the show. Like I also have, I'm also seeing Seabez projecting quite well for us over at FTN, and that doesn't make me feel great. I think the guy that I'm most intrigued by in this range, I don't know if I'm going to end up liking him as much as some of the other guys, but Thorbjorn Olesen strikes me as someone who could end up really underowned in this range.
He will be, but he's been kind of bad. It feels like he's wildly overpriced.
Maybe a little. He was pretty darn good at the Farmers when he missed the cut, other than the fact that he couldn't putt. And then he missed the cut at the WM, but he just barely missed the cut. And prior to that, like he was playing, he played really well in his last two DP World Tour events in January. So I think he's just a really solid player and isn't going to be owned like that in this field.
I think I would okay, so I don't know what to do with Brooks. Let's kind of cross him off. What do you do with Rye and what do you do with Zalatoris? Because Smalley was going to be the next guy. Like I like Smalley more than Olesen, but Zalatoris is just sitting there and I can't figure out if he's too cheap or way too expensive for where he's at right now.
We were talking about mid-irons earlier. Both of these guys, Rye and Zalatoris, are mid-iron specialists, but Zalatoris is actually, we have him as the second best mid-iron player in the field, only behind Lowry. So I'm definitely interested in Zalatoris, and I think I'm more interested in Zalatoris than Rye. He also projects better than Rye for us, which is kind of surprising, given the fact that Zalatoris hasn't obviously been great since his return, or even when he tried to return previously. So I'm a little bit surprised at how well Zalatoris is projecting, and he was not good at the Farmers, but seemed all right at the MX. So I don't know. I do think Zalatoris is my preference of the two, but I don't know that I'm super interested in either.
In the upper seven, so let's say $75,000 to $8,000, it seems like we're both on Team Kiefer this week. No shocker there. You like Hoey. Other than that, Kirk stood out for me, and that's kind of it. Valimaki, maybe. I don't know what to do with Wrighton. Jordan Smith's an enigma to me. Just looking at it, Homa should be the best one, but I still just have no clue where he's at.
I can't tell where Homa is either. I really think that Kiefer is underpriced, and I'm not sure what, like, obviously there would be an ownership where I wouldn't want to play Kiefer anymore, but I think it's going to be higher than, I think it would need to be higher than what it's going to be for me to actually get off of him, because there's a chance that like a year from now, Kiefer would be viewed as the best player in this field. And that's just not something you can often say about a $1,700 player, but he's such a good player. He was so good on Korn Ferry last year. He's doing it with the ball striking. Like there's just so much to like about his game. And I also think that, from the little that I've seen and heard him speak, it does seem like he understands how to approach the game and is going to be a winner sooner than later.
Christoph Wrighton's been getting better despite missing. He's made his past 2 cuts, but he's getting progressively better from that disaster at the Sony.
That was so bad. That was so bad. I don't really know what to think of him, but I don't think I'm that interested just because there are guys around him that I like more.
Well, I bring these guys up, be it Homa, Zalatoris, Brooks, and Wrighton, and even Jordan Smith for that matter, is that we've seen internationals do pretty well at this tournament in the past. It has more of like a linksy vibe. In fact, like when you went back, one of the reasons that I ended up on Kuchar at Birkdale last time was because he had played so well at PGA National. There's a lot of PGA National guys every time that you take a look at the top of when they go back to Royal Birkdale. I'm trying to think, he played well at the Open last year. And just maybe this is a more comforting type of course than what we saw in Hawaii or out west. Like this is closer to European conditions, that these guys are all going to be wildly underowned. And I do believe in their upside, that it's still in there. And I think that Wrighton will be the lowest owned, and he is the most logical choice ever off of Kiefer if you wanted to pivot.
Yeah, and he also fits that same bill of like somebody who there's enough uncertainty around him. We don't know exactly how good this guy is yet, that maybe he ends up just being one of the better players in this field where we, 6 months from now, we look back and say, man, I can't believe we were able to play Wrighton at 7,700 and 8% ownership or whatever it's going to be in that field. So yeah, I like that thought. And then I also think you can pivot to John Perry for the same reason, or Rico Hoey. We talked about a bunch. So there are plenty of pivot options, which I think is why I'd be surprised if Kiefer ends up like 25 to 30%. And if he's 15 to 20, I think I'll probably still play him.
So of these guys, I've mentioned a few so far. I like Nico. Feel like I should like Higo because he's played so poorly, and this is the type of event where he would play well because it's against a weak field. You put him against the good guys, he sucks. Put him against the shit guys, pretty good.
It does seem that way. And I will say, like, I think there is an effect there where it's not just purely random, where like I know when I, for example, show up to a local US Open qualifier, there's a natural confidence knowing, okay, if I play pretty well today, I should be one of the better players in the field and I should get through. And then I show up to sectionals and I'm surrounded by live guys. and I was hitting on the range this past year and I hit one wedge a little bit thin and I like looked around to see if anyone noticed that I had mishit the shot. Like, oh my God, they heard that and now they all think I suck. It's a very real mental variable. And I do think that especially guys who are as hot and cold as Higo is, where you can tell like the confidence level is affecting his quality of play, the guys that he's surrounded with in the field, that's going to affect his confidence. So I don't think that that's just like a random variance thing. I think that that's an actual effect that will have some predictive value when it comes to Higo. And
even to take a look at his stats on the rabbit hole right now, it bears out. I'm pretty sure he's a better putter on Bermuda than he was out west. I mean, he's very bad on POA. By course length, short, very short, pretty good. And this is on the short to very short scale. And then you start looking by field strength. Very strong sucks, average sucks, gains all of his strokes against weak fields and very weak fields. I'm gonna guess that this is a very weak field. And then now, hey, where does he gain his most strokes? On very easy courses. If this continues to play like it did each of the past 2 years, would you qualify this as a very easy course?
Either very easy or easy. So regardless, it sets up pretty well for him.
So not bad for Higo. So I thought that was somewhat interesting just because everyone is now out on Garrick Higo, that this might be a nice opportunity to buy. And this is what I want to get at the very top of the show is how do you make your teams different? Not that I love Higo. I'm not betting Higo, anything like that. But I have a feeling that you're going to see some love for Nico. I like Nico. I think a lot of people like Nico. It might be Doug Gibb time. Michael Brennan's down here. Everyone's looking at Garrick Higo and be like, yeah, big pass on that one. Who cares in this field? Everyone kind of sucks.
Yeah, very much agree. And the other point is he makes a ton of birdies. So when he plays well, he's going to give you a lot of DraftKings points.
Anyone in the sixes or anyone down here? Lee Hodges is interesting just because he's played this tournament well before. He won at 3M, right?
Yes.
I think that, not that the courses are all that similar. I mean, they're similar because they have a ton of water everywhere. But I do think that there's a mental capacity to that of guys that can situate themselves well and make sure they don't hit it into the water off the tee. Yes, we've seen a lot of crossover between those two courses, despite them really having not much in common.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those courses where our strokes gain driving accuracy metric over FTN is really impactful because it's exactly what you just said. It's can you miss in the correct spot on the correct side and making sure that your misses cost you 0.2 strokes instead of 1.2 strokes with a penalty stroke. So very much agree on that front. And man, there are a lot of guys in this range that I'm at least intrigued by and don't know if I should be all in on or if I should run away from them. But Michael Brennan, Dan Brown, Jesper Svensson are the three that are like, man, these guys could be quite good, but I don't know if they're there yet.
I just don't know if Jesper Svensson's actually any good.
It's really hard to tell. Like it's really, really hard to tell. He's had some, and if you look at like the past, I don't know, 8 starts or so, there's really like no reason to be intrigued. His ball striking is pretty good, but he like never spikes enough elsewhere to actually take advantage of that. But man, if you go back just like, especially to 2024, and obviously that's too far back to still have super meaningful signal, but the guy was one of the better players in the DP World Tour. And I do think that there's could be an effect of, you know what, it's just taking him time to be comfortable in the PGA Tour and with his new life. And maybe it's still coming, but from a talent perspective, he's got it. Like there's no question. He's outstanding off the tee, long and straight off the tee. The approach play has been much better this year. Like last year, the thing holding him back was the approach play. This year, it's largely been around the green, oddly enough, and a little bit of putting. At the end of last year, it was mostly the putter. But every single part of his game that has struggled at times in the last 3 years has also been a strength of his at some point in the last 3 years. So it's just this like really odd thing of he's consistently been struggling with at least one part of his game that's holding him back. But it's not like Rico Hoey with Hoey's putting where we know that this skill set for him is bad. Every single part of his game has been good at some point in time where there's a chance that he figures it all out. It all comes together and he goes on a run for like the next 3 months where he's consistently finishing top 10 every event. So it's just this like, I want to buy in. I really, really do. But do I want to actually see it first before I do? I'm not sure what the answer is yet.
It's funny. I was going to go with Adam Svensson, maybe his first round leader. I don't know if I'm going to play him on DraftKings. He's had some low rounds here, and I just went and looked at the 3M from last year. Forgot he opened with a 60 there last year. Guy still has the ability to go low when he can make a few putts. We'll see about him coming into it. So guys who played well at the 3M last year, Chairman Mao, Takumi Kanaya, Thorbjorn Olesen, Adam Svensson, Taylor Moore, Jesper Svensson, Mac Meisner, who was another one of those guys, and Seabez. It's funny that Mesner and Seabez are both right there because they were the two guys before the show that we were talking about that both rate out really well for both of us, yet we have no real opinion on.
Yeah, or at least we wish that it wasn't the case. Like we'd be much more comfortable if we didn't have to make the decision on those guys and we could just say, yeah, I don't have to think about them. But yeah, they're there for sure. And it's one of those situations where like, I think it was round 3 showdown this past week where Harris English was one of the highest GPP scores for us and I didn't play him. And then he has this like phenomenal round. It's like, I don't even remember what decision I made or what my thought process was when I chose not to use him, but man, I regretted that. And maybe that ends up being the C best story this week or something like that. But I don't think that I'm going to play him.
Of the 6K guys, if you really wanted to get aggressive and use 2 of these guys and 8 and 3 9s, because that's on the table for constructing lineups this week if you really want to go that route. Now, I don't know about FTN's data here, but Patrick Fishburne's like the best play you got.
Where is Fishburne? What's his price?
$6,500.
Okay. So basically, oh yeah, he's the one along with Smotherman who projects really well for us.
Yeah, so Fishburne, Smotherman, Fishburne 6th at the 3M Open 2 years ago, in case you were wondering about that. So could you start your lineup like that? Smotherman, Fishburne. What does that do for you?
It does a lot for you, doesn't it? I mean,
9,200 per player.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that this is a pretty strong build style, actually, because we mentioned the fact that like Smotherman might be, let's say 5%, but clearly one of the most popular down there. So if you're worried about like the combinatorial ownership of Smotherman with the group of 9K guys that you have, just because most people who are using Smotherman are using him so that they can fit those 9K guys, you're gaining that back. You're gaining that uniqueness back because the combination of Fishburne and Smotherman is going to be crazy, crazy low. So I like this type of build a lot, especially if you want to play the chalky guys up top. Like if you love Lowry, Gerard, and Nikolai, play those 3 and then get this combination. And now you still have a quality last player. So I think this is a really intriguing start, actually.
And in a field like this, it does make some sense, doesn't it? Because we talked about the difference, the $1,000 difference. Not to say that Rico Hoey's a better player than Patrick Fishburne, but he beats him what? 6 out of 10 tournaments?
Yeah, and not only that, but like this is one of those fields where the 6K guys can actually contend. Like if either of these guys finishes top 10, we're not going to be surprised. Whereas, at Bay Hill, if the 6K guy finishes T10, you're going to say, "Oh my God, what's he doing up there on this leaderboard?" So, yeah, I think it's much more viable than usual. And these guys, I also think you can make the case that like most of the time when you're talking about the 6K range, it's, hey, this guy's pretty good for a 6K player, but he's not that good. Where if Fishburne and Smotherman were in the low 7s, like I'd still be considering them because they'd still project pretty well against that group of players. So I just think that they're underpriced. It's not just that they're the best guys in that range. They actually don't belong in that range.
Some of the other guys you could look at, I've already mentioned Putman, and he's probably going to end up being the second most popular 6K guy. If I had to guess, I think that Celinda rates out pretty well. I mean, I'm always prone to Ricky Castillo, but Celinda's just a lot cheaper this week. And in my mind, they're exactly the same person. But then you have like Shipley and Clanton are both down there too. At what point do you look at pedigree of a player and be like, these guys are gonna figure it out? I'd rather be early when they're 6K because there's less risk that way versus everyone else in this field versus, hey, let me see them do it. Because the moment Clanton like pulls off a top 5, he's like $8,100 the next week.
Yeah, really good point. I love targeting this type of player like all the time where it's as you just mentioned, like how much can one good performance change our opinion of the player? If I don't know,
if Patton Kazire comes 8th, I would not expect him to do anything next week.
100% agree. Yeah, great grab there. Whereas if Clinton finishes 8th, his projection around the industry is going to be dramatically higher next time he tees it up than it is this week. So targeting that type of player, I think, is always strong, is always smart. And then the other thing I'd say is I want to target that type of player, especially when I don't have other options around that player that I think are strong plays. And so maybe this week isn't the time to go after Clanton because we have Smotherman and we have Fishburne, who actually just seem like pretty solid plays. Whereas, if those two guys weren't down there and there was nobody I liked down here, then I think, okay, Clanton's the one guy who won't surprise me if he finishes top 10. So I'll just go there. So I think those are the different things that I think through around this type of player.
Has Fishburne even been good this year? No, is the answer to that question. He has not made a cut yet this year, and he has yet to gain a stroke on approach in any round he's played.
And he's was not good in the last 2 times he teed it up at all. Our projection for him is mostly just drawing on how strong his summer was, and it's not like he was great. But again, if you're looking in the 6K range in a field like this and expecting to see a guy who makes cut after cut and is in really good form, I got news for you. You're not going to find that guy. So you got to be a little bit generous about what you're looking for.
Well, the guy that you could go to, and I'm just looking at my lineup right now that I put in that had Smotherman and Fishburne in it. It's a guy that I drafted a ton actually in best ball, so I could really use him to have a good week because all my guys WD'd from this tournament. Now my strategy of loading up on Cognizant really backfired. I mentioned Zach Bauschu is one of them, but I drafted a ton of Chandler Phillips for tournaments like this. You talk about expected birdies or better. It feels like when he gets hot, all he does is make birdies.
Let me check his birdie rate over expectation. Negative 0.7%.
I would guess on the whole it's probably pretty bad because when he plays poorly, he's really bad. Yeah. But in the you just see him pop up. Like he's probably a better first round leader bet than anything else because when he gets hot, he gets super hot. It's like Svensson. Like Svensson has these weird scores, Adam Svensson, that are 64 and below. Like a lot. Like not a lot, but like, that's a really low score for Adam Svensson. And then he follows it up with 80 the next day. And just like there's no consistency to his game. But when they do get hot, they get super hot. Chandler Phillips feels like one of those guys for me.
Yeah, and where the data very much agrees is that we have him as one of the more volatile players in his price range. So as you said, when he gets hot, he can really get hot. And he also strikes me as someone who, at least anecdotally, I don't have any data on this in front of me, but he seems to play well in slightly windy conditions and when the course gets a little bit tougher. So if we get the old PGA National, I think I'd like him a lot more than if it's the easy PGA National.
I don't know if he... Do you think that we're going to get the easy PGA National? Because there's basically no win projected this week.
I really don't know. I think it depends on what the grass is this year. If it's the full overseed all the way around, then I think it's going to be the easy PGA National. My hope is that the course actually heard, hey, basically all of the fans, and I thought Billy Horschel's quote last year was outstanding on it. Hopefully they took that feedback and they said, okay, we do want to bring back some of the teeth of this golf course, and it makes it like a much better viewing experience too, right? Like when you turn on PGA National on the weekend or on Thursday and Friday, they're going to milk the bear trap for all it's worth and how hard it is and how intimidating it is. And that should be the spirit of the whole golf course, that like, this is a place that you show up to and you better bring your A game or it's going to hurt you. And it just doesn't work as well if that's the case on 2 of the holes and everywhere else is a birdie fest.
Final one. Let's go back to my lineup that I've constructed here and try to figure out what sort of tournament this is better for. So it's a super stack one with the 3 9Ks, the 8, and the 2 6s. So Fishburne, Smotherman, Davis Thompson as the 8, Keith Mitchell, Nikolai Højgaard, and Ryan Gerard is this lineup. Is this beneficial to a large field GPP, a 20 max, a 3 max, a single entry? Where does this fit in the best?
I think it fits everywhere.
Okay.
I think it's just a good lineup no matter what style it's in. And I think that's typically the case.
I have the 2v2 here, by the way, to make this an even better lineup if you want to see it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's David Ford. Oh no, it's $1,000. It was gonna be David Ford and Hao Tong. But I can make it David Ford and Kiefer. Now it's a drastically different lineup. But I thought that Ford and Hao Tong would have been the move.
Yeah, that would have been cool. You could do it if you went from Mitchell to Thorbjornsen. I think that's probably what we built earlier, actually.
Yeah, it's something very close to that. But I just thought that was somewhat interesting. I don't think there's anyone below Smotherman that I like. It's just Fishburne gives me the willies, even though the projections really do like him.
Well, I think so. The next thing I was going to say is you can do this sort of thing where let's say you took Mitchell to Thorbjornsen. You could run it once like this and then run a second lineup where you then switch out Smotherman and put in Fishburne. And so now you take the guy who's most likely to kill that lineup and you give yourself a second opportunity at that lineup where that guy, can't kill you twice. So I like doing that type of strategy. I think it works for 3 entry. I think it works for 20 entry. And it's even something that like, I haven't MME'd in a while, and one of the main reasons why I haven't MME'd in so long is because I personally have found the most success in MME where I literally hand built the 150 lineups instead of using an optimizer, I don't feel like doing that anymore.
That's completely fair. I'll even throw Seabez instead of Thompson into that one to see what happens. There we go. So you like that lineup across. If you were just thinking about single entry or 3 max on the whole, how do you think that lineup looks?
I think it looks really good.
Where would you start for a lineup? Let's say I'm asking you, like, hey, I text you on Thursday morning at like 4 a.m. before it starts. How great is it that golf is going to be started by the time we get up on Thursday now?
Amazing.
It's
going to be so amazing.
It's going to save me a lot of money than from like extra firing on Thursday morning.
Yeah, and I'm also really excited to be able to do showdown ownership at like 7 p.m. instead of 11 p.m. because the round just ended. So that's going to be really nice on my end as well.
So the other part of this, let's say we're playing a 3 max or a single entry. I've texted you like, yo, I need a lineup to throw into the single entry. And you're like, yeah, here are the 6 plays that you can do. Like, what type of lineup do you think you spit out in that sort of situation?
I think I'm probably going to the like Kiefer and Haotong range first and building out from there. So I don't think it would be the 4 9K guys or 3 9K guys and 1 8K with the guys underneath, where I think I'm number one going to the plays that I think are the most underowned in this price range. So whether that's Haotong and Kiefer, like if it is, fantastic. My guess is those guys are going to be somewhat popular. So it might be Rico Hoey, honestly. Like I might be way too invested in Hoey this week. But then it's okay. I've got like the foundational guys. Now I can just play the guys up top that I like. And so one note there is like, let's say that Haotong and Kiefer are surprisingly low owned. And I think that those guys are sorry.
Then your money.
Exactly. And not only does that mean that I feel even better about playing those guys, but it also means, okay, now I can just play the guys that I think are the best plays up top. Now I can eat the Lowry ownership, or I can eat the Gerard ownership, or the Thor Bjornsson ownership if I really want to. If those guys are really popular, then I think I have to make the decision, okay, do I want to play those guys as chalk and then get different up top with Keith Mitchell, maybe Rasmus instead of Nikolai, something like that? Or do I use the guys that I really like up top, Nikolai, maybe then it's still Mitchell, or maybe I go to Shane Lowry, something like that, and now get different down below. So now I'm pivoting off of Kiefer to Hoey. I'm pivoting off of Haotong to Meisner or somebody else, or maybe it's Thorbjorn Olesen that I go to. So that's the type of thing that I'm going to think through is number one is like find those guys that I like the most in the 7-8K range. And then once I've picked them, once I have them in my lineup, what does that ask of the rest of the lineup? Do I need more differentiation, or am I good on that front and I can just play the highest probability plays from there?
So you have $7,500 left in this lineup right now for 2 guys. How do we fill out this lineup of Lowry, Nikolai, Haotong, and Rico Hoey?
Okay. So the first one is I think we could go. Oh, you know what? We can go Kiefer and Brennan, can't we?
We can, yes.
Yeah, I think that's the answer.
There it is. That leaves us with $0 remaining. So you're just really in on Michael Brennan. Is it because he has that one skill set that appears to be way better than everyone else's?
Yeah, I'm put it this way. I'm much more confident that he is an elite driver than I am that he's a below average approach player, short game player, and putter. I know that driving is going to continue to be great, and I won't be surprised if he ends up being a slightly above average putter or a slightly above average approach player, and we just haven't seen those results yet for him. So yeah, it goes back to that conversation. Like we have it all the time now. Is driving is the most predictive thing because it's the part of the game that is most likely to continue at the quality that it has been in the past, and it's just so hard to find a truly elite skill set. And Brennan's driving is truly elite.
Brennan's driving or David Ford's irons? That's the question.
Man, imagine if he had both. Imagine if you combine those.
Then Scottie Scheffler.
Yeah, or he'd be Kitayama because he still maybe can't putt.
That's true. So that is the single entry lineup. It ended up being Kiefer, Brennan, Lowry, Nikolai, Haotong, and Rico Hoey. One and done for the week. I'll go over this with Keith on Wednesday of what my final play is going to be. How do you even... I'm good with just not using any of the top guys this week, just throwing some darts, because it's not that... I mean, listen, if you hit the winner, it is going to be valuable. I can't see myself playing Lowry this week knowing he's going to be like 45% owned.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn because I feel like this... So one of the reasons why we were saving somebody at, let's say, the WM was because not only was the purse small, but they also had to beat Scottie. They had to beat other like really good golfers. That's not the case this week.
No,
This is about as weak of a field as you're going to find any of these elite players in. Not elite players, but
well,
any of the
that's the point though. Like if it comes down to like if you just top of your head predict back of the napkin prediction here, how much is Lowry owned in the one and done? 40%, 30%?
I would guess 20 to 25.
Okay, what's Keith Mitchell going to be owned?
5.
Just use Keith Mitchell.
I agree. Yeah.
That's how you win at one and done right there.
Yes. So I think we're probably saying something closer to what it seems. My point is I'm not getting rid of like the whole 9K range, for example, and saying, all right, I'm going to find a more contrarian one and done player than that because I just don't care about burning any of these guys. Like I'd be totally good with either Højgaard. I'd be good with Mitchell or maybe Thor Bjornsson is going to be up there close to Lowry-ish. I think Lowry and Gerard are probably the two most popular.
And Nikolai.
Yeah. Nikolai. I would guess Lowry, Gerard, Nikolai, and Thor Bjornsson. If those aren't the 4 most popular, I'll be pretty shocked.
That probably soaks up 60 to 65% of picks too.
Yeah.
Like I'm good with using none of those guys and using Rasmus Højgaard, Rasmus Niergaard Peterson, Keith Mitchell, and Johnny Kiefer in one of them. Like I actually did really well with this one last year because I ended up using JJ Spawn and Michael Kim. Now, should I have saved JJ Spawn for the Players or the US Open? Yes. There was no chance I was ever using JJ Spawn at either of those events.
Yeah, very fair. I think the one place I'll push back is I think I will give consideration to Nikolai because I don't see him being like by far the most popular. And we do have him pretty significantly as like in his own tier of win odds and top 5 odds, things like that.
Now that is what the simulations tell you. Do you feel like that's true? Because I bet on Nikolai a lot of times. If he just hit his first 3 drives in the water, I wouldn't be super stunned.
I do trust it a little bit this week. I think I've been really high on Nikolai. He's one of my highest owned guys in best ball. Like I used him a ton on DraftKings down the stretch last season, and just week after week, I thought, man, this guy's just getting better and better. I love the speed he has off the tee is obviously fantastic, but to pair that with a rapidly improving iron game, like he's now I think the 4th best approach estimate for us in this field this week, and he makes putts. Like it's a really strong combination. And because he's as long as he is, he doesn't get credit for being as accurate as he is off the tee either. So I just think that he's one of the most rapidly ascending players on tour. And I won't be surprised if he kind of asserts that fact this week.
Do you worry when looking over this course, there's a lot of water off to the right. And just nothing will stick out more in my mind than the Open Championship last year when Haotong just stopped hitting driver off the tee at some points. He's like, well, I'm just going to miss it so far right that I have to hit an iron here because that's just how it's going to have to go. That one of these guys is going to, I mean, probably multiple of these guys, despite it playing easier, the blow-up potential is still there. That one of these guys makes us look really foolish, and I really hope it's not Johnny Kiefer, but it might be Johnny Kiefer.
It could be. I mean, that's the sort of thing about a field like this is it could be anybody, right? Like
would you cap your ownership on anyone? Be like, hey, I don't want to own anyone at more than 35% this week because water is still such a weird variable here.
That's a really interesting point. I think to kind of back up the point you're making, a lot of the time when you're talking about like the difference between the best players in the world and the players in this field, even like the above average players in this field, it's not so much that the best players have a better A game. It's that their C game is a lot better than the C game from the guys in this field. And so the result of that is any of these guys can blow up your lineup in a way that most, like, you know, Lowry's 7,600 in the signature events, and he's very rarely going to have a terrible week. Whereas any of the 7,600 or 7,000 guys in this week, any of them could be awful, and we shouldn't be surprised. That's just the nature of this quality of golfer. So yeah, I like that thought of capping exposure a little bit more this week than most, just because these guys do have a much worse floor than what you're accustomed in some of the signature events.
If Lowry sucks this week, use him in one and done next week.
Yeah, I love that.
That's the move, because he's going to play. He's perfect for Bay Hill. He probably won't win, but he'll. Like, I've moved up to 20th in the big one and done. Yeah, I went Goddard, Fleetwood, Rory. Because you just need to be close sometimes. Like, luck into a winner here or there, and then get some top fives and signature events. That's how you're going to be near the top of the leaderboard.
And that's especially true when the winner is somebody that's so few people actually have.
Yeah, like there was a while there when it was Rory and Solo second. I think I was up to 9th or something. And that was with all the Bridgman lineups.
Yeah, and Bridgman, like what was his ownership in the one and done? 0.1%?
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, crazy. So yeah, there are lots of ways to run well in one and done for sure.
Yeah, and just take those consistent guys. Like next week, it'll be Fitz and Lowry, or probably like the two. Although I'm trying to think of where I think that Tommy's going to win this year on tour. Like, he got the monkey off of his back, and he's just been, he has had his like C+ game so far, and I think he has back-to-back top 10s in signature events. It just seems like he's very close. Bay Hill, Scottie Scheffler and Euros at Bay Hill are always just two things to look at.
In a weird way, like this start from Tommy is almost even more encouraging than if he just started like lights out the way he finished last year. Because if this is, as you said, his C game now, like good God, that's encouraging for him. He's just gonna top 10 every single event this year, because every single part of his game is working too. Like that's the thing. He's not counting on one specific skill set to carry him. Every single thing is just, he might be the most complete player now without being dominant in a single category.
Where do you think there's anything up with Scheffler? Like, is there some, because he's not as sharp as he was, and this is kind of perfect for all of us if this is actually the case.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something up, because the approach play hasn't been anywhere near what it's been in the past years. I mean, he was gaining like a minimum of a full stroke per round with his irons for most of last year, and he hasn't gained a full stroke per round with his irons yet this year. He hasn't done it since he won the Pro Tour. Now, he might have done it at the Amex. We don't know, because 2 of those rounds were without ShotLink, but I just from remembering that week, like the number of bombs that he made and chip-ins that he had, I think that it was probably the rest of his game that got him there instead of the approach play. So as long as the irons aren't dominating the way they've been in the past, something's different. And honestly, like it could be a lot worse for Scottie so far this year, because the putter has been great. And if any of us like said, or if you told us at the start of the year, hey, Scottie's going to actually somewhat struggle after his win at the Amex. And it's funny that we're talking about 3rd place, 4th place, 12th place after a win as struggling so far this year. But if anyone told us that, we'd say, oh, he must be missing putts again. But no, he's actually making them. And it's the ball striking that hasn't been there, and the approach play specifically that hasn't been there. So that part I think is a little bit discouraging for him, but he's still so good. He's gonna be fine.
Yeah, he's gained over a stroke on approach in 3 rounds. He did 2 in Phoenix. He did 1 at Pebble Beach. But as you said, it's all the putter that's coming through. Here's my take. Is Scottie the new Spieth? That we did for sure. We didn't notice that Spieth in real time was getting worse from like when Spieth was by far the best player in the world, because he had the magic. He started chipping in and making every single putt all the time. Whereas when he was the best player in the world, he did it that some of the time, but tee to green, he was just dominant at all times for that like 2.5 year stretch. People forget that about Spieth, because he held on near the top for so long by chipping in 3 times around. Like, how often does Scottie chip in? It's outrageous.
It's completely outrageous. And the other thing is, I feel like, now maybe this is just purely random and doesn't matter.
That was completely random and doesn't matter a ton. We'll see if Alex can come back after the internet has cut him off. You say too many bad things about Scottie Scheffler, and maybe that he's not the greatest player since Tiger Woods, and all of a sudden the internet's looking to cut you off. Join Blick's Discord if you have more questions for him. You can sub down in the description right now. For me, leave your TGL suggestions in the comment section. Smash the like, and you will see me tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, with Keith Stewart with the final word on the Cognizant Classic. Keith's going to be live at the course. We'll get some inside detail, like if they are overseeding, which Blick wanted to know. We'll figure that out on Wednesday morning. All right, I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!